Morning to everybody. Our Sunday morning. So we started this Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, a couple of weeks ago. So let's start with the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha, Tat Savitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahna Bhavatu Sahna Bhunaktu Sahviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. So we have done only two verses, first two verses of this scripture. In the first verse, this Rishi is telling us renounce, detach. And outcome of this detachment is enjoyment. Okay, by renouncing, we enjoy. So far, we have been conditioned by grabbing, we enjoy. This is renounce and enjoy. Everybody can do that. That's a very high level of achievement, renouncing and enjoying. Then he says, if you cannot do that, work hard in this world. Performing work in this world, live for 100 years. He says there's no other right path. Either that or this. But even while working, never cling to anything. So this Rishi has divided people into two categories, two groups, meditation or meditators and active workers. And if you don't fall into either one of these categories, what happens? Answer to that is in verse number 3. Let's look at it. Asurya nam te lokaha adhen tamsa avrita tamam te prete abhi gachanti ye kech atam hana jana. Very strong language is using over here. Asurya, sunless. That means demonic. Nam means really, te means those, lokaha, people or world. Andhen tamsa, that's like a glooming state. Blinding darkness, andhen tamsa. Avrita, covered. Tamam, to those. Te means they, prete, after death. Abhigachanti, go to. Ye kech, whosoever. Atamhana, killer of the self. Jana means people. He says, sunless or the demonic are those worlds. Enveloped in blinding gloom to which all those people who are slayers of their own souls go, departing from here. So we have been given a beautiful human body, highly developed mind, intellect, And if you don't use it properly, so this Rishi says, you'll go to those darkened places. You did not use the equipment properly. So this is the destiny of those who are not following either the path of meditation or the path of action. Path of meditation, you can call it predominantly sattvic path. Path of action is sure rajasic path. But if somebody wants to stay predominantly tamasic in life, this is what this Upanishadic seer is declaring. Because having been born as a human being, a person who refuses to live either the life of meditation or the life of intense, continuous activity. Karam. This is a karam yoni. It's almost like a, see, when he uses the word atam hana, that's like a suicide. It's like a person will come to experience a terrible fall in its cultural and spiritual eminence. That is the point he's making over here. Sinless world or sunless world, full of sin, sunless, dark ages. Where you don't see the light, you don't see the heat. It could be animal kingdom. Some animals, some bugs, they do live in the dark. Or plants, or a stone. So Atam Hana, slayer of their souls. So soul as such can never be killed. But this term is used that, hey, you've been given a chance to evolve and you have killed that chance. Okay? So we got to look at ourselves. Predominantly, what is our life like? Are we moving towards Satvikta or moving towards the Tamsikta? Because nothing stays the way it is. There's a movement. We got to look at it. Do we want to go to sunless worlds after leaving this body? Because we have to leave this body. Nobody can say that I'm going to be here forever. You can't. There's an expiry date for this body. So very clearly he is telling us the theory of reincarnation in this verse. Reincarnation. That life is not just this life. There is a life. There was a life before and there's a life afterwards. Reincarnation. So if a person decides to live in a life of sloth, inertia, then moving towards darkness. So choice is ours. And this Jana word, Jana means people, those who are caught up in this wheel of life and death and life again, they are called Jana. So we are all Janas, people. Because as a result of our old vasanas, old desires, subtle impressions, again and again we've been taking a form. We take a form in a different environment where we are seeking the satisfaction through sense gratifications, happiness through the fulfillment of the desires, security through the wealth, and even the glory through popularity. That's what we have been working on. But while going through it, sometimes we suffer because there are failures, there are sorrows, dejections, despairs. Sure, there are some successes, but there's a constant up and down. And if we have not really risen up to that level, we are after death reborn in some other environment according to our vasanas. So we are all janas. Okay. So you can see that very clearly. The first verse, the second verse, and the third verse. Each verse has its own special thought. Okay. Now we're going to look at the next verse. So verse number 4 all the way to 8. He's giving us a beautiful description of the self. And that self is the goal to be reached. Because we have forgotten who we are. We got so engrossed into the outer world, even though we know that this is temporary. We know it's going to be taken away from us. But we have forgotten the real goal of our life. So this great Rishi is reminding us in the next few verses what the goal of life is. Divine sense of eternal fulfillment. Let's look at number 4. अनेजत एकम मनसः जवीयः न एनत देवा आपनुवन पूर्वम अरिषत तत् धावतः अन्यान अत्येति तिष्ठत तस्मिन् अपः मातृश्वः दधाति. अनेजत, unmoving. Ekam, one. Manasa, then the mind. Javiya, swifter, like a faster. Na enat, not this. Devaha, gods. Apnu, one. Reached or overtake. Purvam, before. Arshat, ran. Second line, tat means it. Dhavataha, running. Running. Anyan, others. Atyeti, overtakes. Tishthat, staying. Tasmin, in it. Apaha, activities. And actually, literal meaning of apa is water. Matrishwaha, wind, air. Dadhati, supports. The self is motionless. Motionless one. Okay? Unmoving, anejat. The self is motionless one, swifter than the mind. Because mind is very fast. But faster than the mind is what? Atma. The devas could not overtake. So devas could not overtake. It ran before them. And what are the devas? Devas are the senses. All our senses are the devatas. Power to see, power to hear, power to talk, power to touch, power to smell. They're all devatas. And we have muddied these devatas also. These are the devatas. Sitting, it goes faster than those who run after it. So it doesn't move, it's unmoving, but just sitting, it can go fast. By it, Matrishvaha, the element air or water, supports the activity of all living beings. So starting with this verse, next 4 continuous mantras, description of the self. Description of the self as well as the goal. So together when you look at it, there's like a one vakya. So there was a first vakya. See, Upanishads speak in the term of the vakyas. See, that's where those 4 mahavakyas have come from. So first verse was first vakya, second verse, second vakya, then third vakya. Now these verses, four continuous mantras, are the fourth vakya. Okay. So though eternal, it has no quality of its own. Why? Because language cannot explain it. Sure, we talk about the experiences. There are some pointers towards it. But if you look at these qualities literally, we'll be lost. This intellect of ours cannot understand. This is something to be experienced. That's why they say it's a futile attempt to try to explain the infinite in terms of the finite language. No matter how deep the language is, beautiful the language is, language cannot explain this infinite. So that's why we got to understand it word by word. Let's look at motionless. This word, anejat, unmoving or motionless, it's an indication of all pervasiveness. Because something which is all pervasive cannot go anywhere. It's already there. So motion is a change in time and space. I can go from this seat to the other seat with a motion. This body can, because body has limitation. But Atma is everywhere. It's motionless. Because Atma is all pervading. Body is not all pervading. Body has a beginning and the end. Atma does not. So all pervading reality cannot and need not move anywhere because there's no spot where it's not already. So this word anejat, it's motionless, steady, changeless. The different meanings you will see in the scriptures. So it is a perfect contrast. Anejat is a perfect contrast of the Jagat. Jagat means moving. Jagat means changing. Anejat means opposite of that. Jagat also means running. It's like a constant experience. Even while sitting in this body right now, we can experience something else, somewhere else. That's a Jagat. And the next term is Ekam, one. That is a contrast with the many. Ek means one, anek means many. It is the one in many. It's like this is the constant factor. This Jagat is many. Who is one is the self. So anejat ekam. So through all changes, it's almost like in spite of all the calamitous waves in the ocean we say is same. Changes are only the waves. Ocean is constant. The same way, this ek, self, ekam, is constant in this changing world of ours. Whether it's a physical world we are talking about or a mental world we are talking about. So the seekers, they strive to realize this unity in diversity. When we meditate, that's what we are trying to get to. That's why we have to detach ourselves from this jagat of ours. We say we are not the body, we are not the mind, we are not the intellect. I am that Atma which wants to become with the Paramatma. That's a meditation. We want to experience it. And this can happen through a unifying code of joy, love. If you don't love meditation, if you don't find joy in meditation, we are not going to find this unifying chord, this power which is giving the strength to all. Then he says, sitting, unmoving, it's a swifter than the devas. The first deva is the mind. Mind is also a devata. Manasaha. Senses are devatas, but man is also a devata. It's a jyoti. So by denying motion, it's not denying the speed, which is its rate of motion. Mind is the fastest thing in the universe, but the self runs faster. Because in the form of the existence, it's already there where mind wants to go. Before mind reaches there, it has already reached there. It was always there. All pervading again. Just take your mind to that. All pervading. So that's why I said these are not gunas, these are pointers towards this truth. So it's also called, the rishis, they call it a motionless speed. It's not moving, but it's pretty fast. Motionless speed. So all pervading, it cannot move. Nothing that moves in the universe can ever move except in a medium of consciousness. So this is the idea which is emphasized in the first line of this verse. And the devas could not overtake it. And I told you the devas really means the sense organs. Anything which illuminates is a devata. So sense organs, if mind cannot take over, definitely we know that sense organs cannot. And sitting, it goes faster than those who run after it. So that means even though it's motionless, it's not a dull, inert entity which has no activity at all. See, when you meditate also, don't I always tell you that is, it's not just a sitting in a tamsikta, it is a most satvikta. There's a lot happening. Okay, it's not a dull, inert activity. In fact, it is both activity and inactivity. So that's why it said that our real nature is the most active. The self is not only pervading, but it is also very substance and dynamism in all movements. Very force behind everything, which causes the activity in life. Okay? That's what self is. That's what soul is. That's what Atma is. Wherever life is sustained, it is because of this self. This consciousness. So this self is the very source from which even air takes its potency. Matrishwaha. See, that's what he's trying to tell us in the last part. He says, by it means by the self, the soul. Matrishwaha supports the activity of all living beings. And in us, what is the Matrishwaha? There is sure water element in us, and there is a air element also. And how is it supported? Because of the Atma. Okay, let me read it again. And if any word you don't understand, the self is motionless one, swifter than the mind. The devas could not overtake. It ran before them. Sitting, it goes faster than those who run after it. By it, Matrishvaha supports the activity of all living beings. And this also means like a pran. We think that we are living because of we are breathing, and there's in the breath we have the pran shakti. That pran is also pran, they say, follow the soul after the death, physical death. It doesn't go ahead of soul, it follows it. Okay, so the self is that powerful, which we have forgotten. Something so important, something who we are, we don't pay much attention to it. So that's why these rishis again and again, they tell us, they bring our mind towards it. So the same idea much more vividly in the next few verses, because he wants us to understand the importance of who we are, because this is the only homework we have. If you want to call it a school, this earth, this life, this is the homework. This is the test. This is the main subject, to know yourself. Tat ejati, tat na ejati, tat dure, tat u antike, tat antaha asya sarvasya, tat u sarvasya asya baheta. So this is a little simpler than the last verse in terminology. You know most of these words. Tat means it. And over here, it means the self, the soul. Ejati, moves. Tat na ejati. Na means not. So tat means it. Ejati moves. It does not move. Tat means it. Dure, far. U word is for verily. Antike, near. Second line, tat means it. Antaha, inside. Asya, of this. Sarvasya, all. Again, tat and u, it and verily. Sarvasya, of all. Asya, this. Baheta, outside. So I told you, this is very simple. All the terms are, I'm sure you already knew all of them. The Atma moves and it moves not. So the language is simple, but the thought in it can really make us wonder what is he saying. The Atma moves and it moves not. Contradiction. It is far and it is near. It is within all this and it is also outside all this. So if you connect this with the last verse, he is repeating or elaborating the last verse over here. These rishis, whether the scripture is small or big, they just want to make sure that we understand it. That's why repetition is there. By using different words, they just want us to really get the concept clear. So the supreme consciousness is all pervading. All pervading. So entire significance of the term all pervading, and he wants to experience this, the all pervasiveness. Because even if we know that we are the Atma, but we think it's just residing somewhere, only at one spot. People have arguments about it. Some people say it's here, some people say here, somewhere else in the body. But over here, Rishi is saying it's all pervasive, not just in the body, outside also. Within and without. But the very first word he uses over here, moves. So the pure awareness or consciousness, the life principle, whatever you want to call it, it's all pervading, neither moves nor acts. It just revels in its own glory. That's what he's trying to tell us. It's like with reference to the waves again, that example of waves in the ocean. The ocean is termed as roaring, surging, but in its true nature, the ocean is not the waves alone. Waves are moving. Ocean, we say it's a tranquil, it's peaceful, motionless, majestic. It's in its own serenity, in its own calmness. So the same way with the life as such, the Atma, in its all-pervading nature, is motionless. It neither acts nor works. With reference to the material existence, the Prakriti, life can be defined as thinking, feeling, acting, deciding. Okay, so who does all that? Prakriti does. With whose help? The Atma's help. Just like the waves are moving, with whose help? The ocean's help. But ocean is calm, still, motionless. Okay, so the same way he is explaining it to us. Sitting in a train that is halting at a station, I'm sure you have seen outside through the window the moving train, which is exactly parallel to the lines, and you feel that your own train is moving. Perception. Even though you're not moving, you are still. Perceptions are always relative. The same way, viewing the motionless spirit of life through the world of the agitations in matter, it seems like that spirit is moving. So it moves, yet in its real nature, it moves not. It is a distant and it is a near. Because if it's all pervading, it's everywhere. Nearest of the near, and it can be farthest of the far. It is at once near and the most distant. Because some people have a thirst, spiritual thirst, and divine energy to pursue the path of seeking through tireless meditations. They see the self is right here. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to look anywhere else. It's right here. It is occupying the center of my own individualized personality. It's right here. Nothing is in fact so near to us as our own self. That's why they say you can fool others, but you cannot fool yourself. Because your own self is watching all the time. It never sleeps. During the dream also, during the dreamless sleep also. It's always watching. But to others who have not gone through it, the reality is very far from their realization. It's far away. Maybe someday, maybe in some life. So it's near, but it can be far also. So this self or the soul is not only to be realized in the center of your own individual life, but it has to be experienced everywhere. Because this consciousness or the self or Brahma, it's homogeneous. You cannot say that I have experienced it here, but it's not there. If you have experienced it here, you know it's there too. You know it's in the plant also, in the cow also, in a dog also, everywhere. In the moon and the sun also. In every speck of the dirt also, if you have experienced it. So it's near and it's far, all pervading. That's why it has to be experienced, self-experienced as a reveling. So this idea is again more clearly brought out when he says it's within all this and it is without all this. Right? So different terms he is using. Tata antaha asya sarvasya tata u sarvasya asta asya baheta. In and out both. So not only is this Atma the central core of this physical entity of ours, but in the same consciousness is the very substratum for the entire perception of the universe. You will see that in a tree also. Because to consider self only within and to live a life of pure introversion is truly a negation of the truth. That's what this Rishi is telling us. It's inside, it's outside. From a Vedic standpoint, this is condemned actually. That's why those rishis, the yogis, when they went outside for a further experience of it, what did they do at the end? They came back. They wanted to spread this message to others also. They want to encourage others also. Otherwise, for themselves, they didn't have to. They could have been there in the cave somewhere, just keep on enjoying their own glory. They came back. This is what is again and again by the Upanishads. This is the message. This kind of a enthusiasm we should have. It's not a religion of only inward gazing. Inward gazing is needed, but the outward also is the same thing. So whole Ishavasya Upanishad, you will see this messages we are getting, that do not neglect this. Do not neglect your responsibility towards yourself and at the same time towards the outer world either. Okay, we are part of this, so do not neglect it. So we will see that in this Upanishad, they call to all of us to act in this plural world. So in the field of polarity, as a means to the greater fulfillment. This field of polarity is called avidya. You will see these terms coming up in future verses. Field of polarity avidya, but means to the greater fulfillment vidya. And after having gaining the vidya, the self, sure, feel fulfillment, but serve this polarity also, this plural world also. Through the activity, through the seva. Don't become so introvert, so selfish, It's almost like that example I always give you. Few young boys, very hungry, couldn't find anything to eat. One of the boys, he just climbed up on that wall and he saw beautiful trees on the other side, laden with luscious fruits. Sure, he could have just jumped up on that wall and gone to the other side to appease his hunger. What did he do? He just sat on top of the wall and held the hands of all those boys and helped them climb that wall. This is what our rishis are telling us when they give us the indication like this again and again and again, that self, soul, God, Brahma, no matter which words you use, Atma moves and moves not. It is far and it is near. It is within all this and it is also outside all this. Okay, so all these pointers are taking us towards the goal of life, towards who we are in reality. Okay, so 11:15. I would love to go through the rest of the verses also, but we can do it next time. What is the hurry, right? Let's have a little dialogue. Uh, and next week again, let me do the Purnamada because I think Jyoti likes to record it up to this point. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnase Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. So definitely we'll just have a little dialogue. Any questions you have or any comment or any part which you understand it differently. Because Upanishads are, they are speaking to us sometimes differently also.
So next week, there's no class.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to mention. Next week, we are celebrating Ramnami at the ashram here. And if you are in town, please do come, but do let us know if you are coming because lunch will be provided here. Okay, we'll have fresh, hot, warm food, cold salad also, but warm food. So please do come. Let us know if you are coming. Call us or RSVP to us so that we have plenty of food for you. So there won't be a class, but we will have for people who are not in this town or who are not coming. So you can watch it on Facebook Live also. We'll do the Havan. And I think email has gone to you, the program, the timing and all that too. So please do. Ramnami is I mean, all our Hindu festivals are very dear to us. Not just Hindu, any religious festival is very dear to us. But we at the ashram celebrate Hindu festivals. Okay, because this is the tradition at these ashrams. So question, Jyoti?
Yes, Sujata has a question.
Yes, Sujata.
It's not exactly a question, but it's the observation. And I love your comment about life not being about navel gazing, that you have to act. Because sometimes you can get that impression that we're constantly meditating, but
No.
it's about
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah, no, meditation is definitely gives us the direction. That's why meditation is very important. Otherwise, it's very easy to get lost into these temptations of this world and forget ourselves. So early morning meditation, late night meditation, here and there, taking our attention towards who we are, it just keeps us on the right path. Okay. So, but we are here, we are in a karma yoni, we are supposed to do the karmas also. Yes, definitely. Okay, but meditation, if we are not meditating and praying, we are not doing our duty, by the way. Okay, that's also our duty. Yes, Jyoti.
Dr. Chandra.
Yes, yes.
Hershji, thank you, Hershji. Such a beautiful session. One word I couldn't follow you on. Pran follows the soul.
Yes. Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit for me on that? I thought they're same. So maybe
No, they are
I
not the same.
misunderstood.
Pran is, see, soul doesn't become bigger or smaller. Soul just is. It's eternal. Pran is a part of the Prakriti, which goes up and down. Pran and soul is not the same thing. And there are Upanishads, they talk about this in a detail, what Pran is. Maybe one day we'll talk about it. But Pran is part of the Prakriti. In the Prakriti, things change. See, that's why sometimes we feel full of energy. Or we say, eat this food, they are full of Pran, source
Yes.
of energy, right? So
Correct.
soul is different than Pran. Yes, Pran follows. And that's why when a person dies, we say, in Hindi, we say pran nikal gaye. Pran
So
pakeru.
what
Okay, but
then the
actually
soul,
it's the soul which departed from the physical body. Yes.
when will we realize that we achieved the ultimate goal of,
Okay.
is there
When
a
we,
way we,
yeah, the way we will do is you'll feel peaceful no matter what happens. In the outer world, whether it's a great success or a utter disaster, you are not shaken up. Because you know you
will
are the
be,
Atma, you are the soul.
be the silent observer again?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we'll become
Nothing
silent
happens.
observer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not either that state or that state. In between also, you will see that. More and more peace you will feel.
You mean the
And
mind
then,
is not agitated, correct, Hershey?
yeah, mind is not agitated. And maybe it will get agitated in the beginning and then you just watch. Because once you have experienced this state, you just want to experience it again and again. Okay, say utter
Yeah.
peace. Okay. And while you are on the screen, thank you. I saw that your sponsorship for the Ramnami function. I really appreciate that. Thank you
Oh,
very
no,
much.
thank you, Ji.
I
Thank you,
tried
thank
to
you.
reply on that email, but somehow I could not. I just wanted to thank you.
Oh, no problem, Ji, no problem.
So
Thank you, thank you.
fully
God bless you.
appreciate it. Yes. So I